Didn't we just have an anniversary celebration? Anyway, here we have Kamen Rider Beyond Generations, the crossover movie between Kamen Rider Revice and Saber, or rather, the crossover movie between Revice and Anniversary Riders featuring Saber. When a villain named Diablo awakens in the year 2021, we catch a glimpse of a world 50 years in the future taken over by devils. So Kamen Rider Sentry travels back in time to get help from Ikki and Toma to defeat Diablo and make a better future. Let me say this to start. Kamen Rider movie plots have been gradually getting more interesting with enough openness for creativity while also being focused enough where they don't become a mess. Which is where my biggest praise for Beyond Generation comes from. The story, the character interactions, the set pieces. All of this kept me wanting more, like way more. You might be expecting a lot going in, since after all, this is a crossover movie with Revice and Saber's ginormous cast. Though much like being an answer to superhero Senki, Saber isn't given that much time, so we can focus more on Ikki and the mystery of Kamen Rider Sentry. However, what screen time Saber's cast does get is actually pretty good, with Toma and Rintaro being, well, the way you remembered them, and that's always nice. I will admit, if you're a big fan of Saber and want to see a lot of crossover with Revice's cast, or just want more Saber in general, then you might be a little disappointed. In fact, I think there are a couple of Saber characters that only say like one line. Aside from that, Sentry's character is amazing. His backstory, his interactions with Ikki, and just having an overall awesome design is already making him one of my favorite movie writers. You might have noticed either on screen or through trailers that this movie is also kind of a celebration of Kamen Rider as a whole, and I see that more in a storytelling way than anything overly visual. Okay, so I'm only saying this part because it was a major part of the trailers and marketing, so I hope you don't think it's that big of a spoiler, but we get to see past riders, or rather see our heroes transform into these past riders. Personally, I think it's a little distracting, cause the anniversary themes are more told in the story, and then suddenly we see old suits, with only a couple popping in early in the movie. The plot reason why they do it is kind of funny, if not morbid if you really think about it, but again, it was kind of weird for me. At least we got to see Kamen Rider Poppy's suit again. That point also extends to this one other scene, but more positively. Again, trailer scene and major marketing, though if you really want to skip this quote-unquote cameo, then the timestamp to skip it is on screen, or you can mute me for about 10 seconds. At about halfway through the movie, Kamen Rider Sentry tells a story of Takeshi Hongo, and who else but to play young Takeshi than the actor's own son. Like before, it was a tiny bit distracting, but I easily got over it by how awesome it was. I absolutely loved every second of this scene, and the love letter to the original Kamen Rider. In the past few Rider movies, my more noticeable gripes were the villains, and this time, Diablo is okay. He had more screen time than Asmodeus at least. Actually, this is gonna be a really weird criticism, though this is just a personal thing where Beyond Generation's anniversary themes feels strange compared to how superhero Senki celebrated its heroes. That's why I mentioned the distracting returning riders from earlier. Still, I do like seeing these suits again, even if Senki did it a little better, and I'd rather have some anniversary celebrations than none at all. Now for my biggest praise, the visuals. Oh my gosh, this movie is gorgeous. I don't know what kind of Vaseline Toei puts on their cameras, but I love the look of these set pieces, especially with how HD everything is. Old sets were recreated from photos when the past is mentioned. The group shot of all of our riders is a masterpiece, and the special effects are as beautiful as ever. There were a couple of effects that looked awkward, but I can easily gloss those over, cause I want to watch this movie again if just to literally take a look at the scenery. To backtrack a little bit, despite me saying that this is more of a Revice crossover with Kamen Rider Sentry, I should really say it's more Ikki because his siblings and everybody else in Revice that you come to expect are here, but I don't know, I kind of wanted them to have a bit more screen time just like Ikki, but that's probably just me. And of course there's George. He's still my favorite. Overall, this movie might be one of my favorite stories in recent memory, and the visuals may have reached their peak here. Despite some odd pacing issues before the climax and an okay villain, I found everything else to be very enjoyable. I made this post on Twitter saying the movie was okay, but in actuality, Kamen Rider Beyond Generations is fantastic. By the way, I'm actually not subbing the movie. LOL.
God damn!